Hello, this is the man in the middle. I'm here to review Artemis for the Philip DeFranco Book Club. This book was written by Andy Weir. He was originally the writer of The Martian, which was a knockoff success, especially for the guy's first book. I personally never read the book, but I've heard great things, and if it's anything like Artemis and the detail that was seen in this book, I can understand why people liked it. The intention behind this book is probably just to, write the second book that this guy has created. Because The Martian was such a big hit initially, I'm guessing people were just throwing money at him to make another book. And this is what you get when people throw money at you just to make a fucking book. Artemis is a story that follows Jazz Bashira. Jazz is a young woman who lived on the moon since she was 6 years old. Her dad moved her up there when she was that young so that he could go and do some welding on the moon. Jazz calls herself a slut, and everyone else seems to say the same thing. But there isn't anything in the book that really portrays her as being one, aside from a few snide comments here or there that she makes about herself. Jazz is also told by everyone that she is always wasting her potential. She's such a smart girl, and she ends up just being what they call a porter, just a glorified mailman up on the moon. It seems like everybody around her, no matter who it is always saying, "Oh, you could always do so much more with your life, Jazz." Personally, I found Jazz didn't really seem like a young woman by any means in this book. She seemed to portray more of a young, juvenile, young man in most instances. Jazz is known for smuggling things onto the moon, and in doing so, she's kind of gained trust from some people. One of the people that she gained trust from was a pretty wealthy entrepreneur, and he asked her to do a heist of sorts, I guess is what you'd want to call it. If anything, it's just a large act of vandalism. He asks her to go demolish some equipment so that he can overtake the aluminum manufacturing facility for the moon. In the long run, you learn that this has a lot to do with some business that he wants to do outside of just making aluminum, but in the short term, Jazz initially declines to try the offer, but when he tells her that he's going to pay her 1 million slugs to do it, she just can't say no. As you would expect, her plan doesn't go as desired, and she has to use her much overstated, underutilized potential to find her way out of this mess that she gets herself into. She nearly kills everyone on the moon, but is able to resolve the problem that she creates by herself without anybody being seriously hurt. In the end, you find that Jazz did this mainly to help pay her father back for another giant mess that she had gotten herself into. Because she nearly killed everybody on the moon base, she was forcing deportation at the end of the book as well. Somehow, she was able to talk the mayor out of kicking her off of the moon by saying some garbage about, while she may be a smuggler, she at least has morals and doesn't let people bring in guns or drugs. And while I would like to believe that, there's nothing in this book that really shows that for the right price that she wouldn't allow something like that to come in. So, it seems like a bunch of BS to me. It's pretty difficult for me to find a positive moral to this book. In the end, she just gets a slap on the wrist. They ask her to give back half of the money that she had received from doing this giant heist, and she's back to square one where she was at the beginning of the book. Really, the moral would be that Jazz can get away with whatever she wants, as long as she can convince somebody that she's got some sort of moral character that you never see in the book. She goes as far as does millions of dollars worth of vandalism, and then almost gets away with mass homicide, but where's the moral character behind her for a lot of that stuff? So it was kind of hard for me to find a positive moral of this story. In the long run, it was still a pretty decent story, or at least kept you entertained. What did I enjoy about this book? I really enjoyed the science and the detail that was in this book. I hear that The Martian was very good about the same kind of descriptions for a lot of the science that was seen inside of that book. As an engineer, I get a little geeky when it comes to numbers and details of things like welding on the moon or the economics of the moon base. With that being said, even I tired of some of this detail that he put inside the book. It seems like he took a lot of time to do these details in some pretty inopportune times. There's a lot of times when he's trying to build suspense in the book, but then he goes off on some big long tangent. He kind of loses some of the suspense that he's trying to build in some of these big scenes. In the long run, if you can put up with Jazz's overbearing 12-year-old boy attitude and like geeky statistics, then this would be worth 3.5 Philly D's drinking a small bottle of Jameson. While the book had some questionable parts, the overall package was a joy to listen to, and it wasn't that bad. I kind of shit on it all day, but it was fun to listen to, and I really do enjoy his writing style. By the sound of it, the studios have already purchased the movie rights to this book. They've got the directors who did 21 Jump Street jumping all over making something for this. Weir's also interested in trying to turn this book into a franchise, kind of like a Hunger Games of Space. I'm not quite sure if I'm down with that, but maybe I'll give it a listen. Alright, my question's for Phil. Are you looking forward to see this book turned into a movie? And would you change anything before doing so? Is there anything specific you do on vacation on the moon? Where would would you like to see a sequel to this book go?